Hey everyone, welcome to Trail Talk. We are on round two. We accidentally got on a different page a minute ago. So here we are now. I hope you didn't leave us or think that we forgot. We are here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. We're in our South Side studio today, outside with my very good friend and special guest, Clifford McGhghy. Clifford is a beekeeper. He lives just outside of town here in Duncan, and we have been friends for a very long time. As I said the first time through, we've known each other for more than 30 years, and we were basically children when we first met. So we are the camera, if it makes us look older than what I just made it sound like, it's the camera.
That's it.
It always happens.
We've known each other more than 40 years. I was just doing the math. 47 to be exact.
40
here, but
yeah,
you weren't here
47.
then.
I wasn't here yet. No, I wasn't. Clifford, you grew up in Anadarko. We're both from Caddo County. And then where'd you go from there?
Well, I went to Southeastern State University, went to college there, graduated. The Vietnam War was going, and I got one of those lovely letters from the uncle. And so I joined the Air Force, and I trained and spent 4 years in the Air Force, 3 of them in Tucson, Arizona. I was a crew chief on a Titan II missile silo. And I left there and I moved. I needed a job. I had a wife and 2 kids. So
Right.
I came to Duncan and hired on here with Halliburton and spent many years there. And I got retired, but I was able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And after I retired, I ran a home inspection business for 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
And I started during that time, I started keeping bees. It's a hobby.
Okay.
I'm not a professional at all. I mean, beekeepers are put into 3 categories. You're either hobby beekeeper, meaning you have less than 20 or something like that. And then if you've got up to about 50 hives, you are a sideliner.
Okay.
And then if you've got 50 to 300 is the sideliner, and then over 300 is the commercial beekeeper, and that's typically what they.
And so those are the places that produce the honey.
Those
that
are
we're.
The commercial people are the
Uh-huh.
guys that load their bees up and take them to California to the almonds, and then they come back and do whatever they do here. And they get contracts for pollinating crops.
Oh, okay.
That's typically. Now there's people that are sideliners that do that too.
Okay, but a guy with a number of hives that you have, that wouldn't be anything like
I've got about 20 hives.
Okay.
So no, I'm a hobbyist, and it's not a cheap hobby, but I just keep telling my wife it's cheaper than golf.
Okay, well there you go. Cheryl appreciates that too, I'm sure. So can 20 hives, can they produce honey that you could?
Yes.
Do you ever do that? Do you ever collect the honey for
I
yourself?
every summer.
Yeah.
I usually harvest honey around the 4th of July, more or less, and then we bottle it. I don't eat honey personally.
Uh-huh.
No offense, but
Yeah.
I'm a diabetic, so I can't eat honey.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. There's nothing better than a little honey on your peanut butter.
I'm with you 100%.
But I do, and we usually keep a pint just to have it on hand.
Uh-huh.
It's great cough medicine. If you have a cough, just put a spoonful in your mouth and let it melt, and the cough will go away.
So with 20 hives, about how much are you able to harvest in a?
Well, it depends on
Summer?
the year.
Okay.
Last year, I only made 56 pints, and you sell honey by the pound, but I sell it by the pint because no one knows what a pound of honey looks like.
Right.
How much will
right.
I get?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we're just accustomed to what they sell in stores.
so, yes, I made 56 pints last year, so that would be 80 pounds more or less.
Okay.
And the year before I made 118.
Wow.
but it depends on the weather.
Uh-huh.
Last year, everything got beat up by the hail. About the time it would come back out, we'd get beat up by the hail again, and that happened 3 or 4 times at my house. The year before was one of those utopic years where we got lots of rain in the spring, and if you can recall, wildflowers up and down the highways and
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
that was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good. So this year I would like to break that 200 mark, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah.
If you're wondering how much you make off of a colony, you have a honey super. I use mediums. Boxes come in 3 depths, deeps, mediums, and shallows.
Wait. I don't know what a honey super is.
Okay, and anything that goes above the brood box is a super.
Is this a brood box?
No, this is an observation hive.
Oh, okay.
Anything that goes on top. It's 6 5/8 deep, and I stack them up. I've got some out there now with 2 or 3 honey supers on.
And what is the purpose of a super?
It's so they have more room to put their honey.
Okay.
Bees will fill all the space they have.
So it's just extra container, extra space.
When they fill that up, when they're 80% filled, I'm going to go back and put another one on.
Uh-huh.
And then out of that, I use 10 frame boxes, Langstroth boxes. And that was a Reverend Langstroth patented that box in 1853, I believe.
Wow.
And now it's, of course, the patent's long since gone, and we've modified it a little here and a little there.
But still, don't you love it when an idea that was from so long ago just stands the test of time? I love that.
It just come right on through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 10 frames in my boxes. They make an 8 frame box, and you can build them any size you want. You just the best thing is to stick with a frame that's standard, the Langstroth frame, and that way you can take bees and brood out of here and move it to another colony to bolster them a little and things like that. So on a medium box, the 6 5/8 box, I make a pint of honey for each side of the frame.
That seems like quite a bit to me.
Well, it is if you can get them to fill it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a lot. So let's kind of talk about basics with the bees, because I think there's a lot that goes into making the honey, but I think if we understand the basics of like what happens in a colony, then we can get to the honey making process. Does that sound like a good order for things?
Okay. We have a colony of bees. You can start your bees with a swarm. You can go catch a swarm. They'll land on tree branches this time of year, or you can go to a place that sells them. You can buy what they call a nuke. Is short for a nucleus of bees, and usually they start them in a box that's 5 frames.
Okay.
And when you get that nuke, you'll get a box of bees that with a working queen, and they've been working together for 6 weeks usually. So they.
Let me ask a question that popped into my head. Are any of yours wild bees that you caught?
They have
somewhere?
been, yes.
So how does a person go about catching those bees? I mean, I don't think you'd like whistle, here bees. I don't know how you catch bees.
Okay. There's usually 2 ways. One, you're going to get a phone call.
Okay.
They're going to call you and they're going to say, I've got bees hanging on the bush in my backyard. What can you do?
Yeah.
And you go over there and you simply shake them into a container, take them home with you.
Really? They'll just shake right into
the container. And if they read the same book, then they will stay with you. And if they didn't, they may fly away.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Yeah.
And the young beekeepers get frustrated. I caught 10 swarms and only have 6 of them left. You know, what am I doing wrong? They're just being bees. They just weren't happy with the place you gave them. Another thing you can do is put out a swarm trap. And a swarm trap is not a trap at all because you can't contain bees.
Uh-huh.
But a swarm trap is usually about the size of a nuke box or a little bigger. And they send out scout bees before they swarm, and you put it out there 200 or 300 yards away from your beehives, and they'll move in it. I had a situation where I loaned a deep brood box to a young man out here, and when he finished with it, he brought it cleaned up, brought it back to me, and I was not home. He sat it on a pallet out by my shop door. And 2 days later, I walked by there and there's bees going in and out. And I thought, well, they're just messing around. There's frames in there.
Right.
Well, I opened it up and looked, and I'd had a swarm move into it.
Wow.
Happened just like that.
So they just find a place and move in.
And that's the reason you don't want to leave an old water heater in your junk pile out back, because they'll move right in. And they're hard to get out of water heaters.
Huh.
And they'll move into trees. They move into any, a barrel, a box, tires. I've cut them out of some forms they use to build concrete walls and things.
Wow.
Like I had them stacked out there, and they just moved right in there and made it home.
Wow. Well, that's good information to know for people who have stuff sitting around. Stuff that
right.
Bees might move in. Okay, so you get your bees, you either buy some or you find some, and you take them and put them in one of these boxes, I guess.
Yes.
Frames.
Okay.
With frames in it.
If you get a nucleus, then you've got 5 frames to put in your new box.
Okay.
And that anchors them to that box usually. And then you've got some empty, so they've got room to grow.
So does that mean that they'll fly away and they'll come back to their box?
Yes.
Not another colony's box.
That's correct.
They know their box.
They know their box.
That's very
and
interesting.
You can pick their box up and move it around there, over here, 50 feet, and they'll come back to this spot.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Hey, Peter, Abby, and Barbara. Thanks for watching, you guys. We're glad you're with us today. That's Abby Stewart, by the way, who's watching. Yeah. Yeah.
Miss Abby.
Okay.
And one thing I didn't mention is you can buy a package of bees.
Okay.
And a package of bees is normally 3 pounds, and they'll come in a box that's 8 by 16 by about 6 inches thick. And they ship them to you in the UPS truck. And
little guy in the brown truck running your little box of bees up there to the house.
I don't think they like it. They've really gotten expensive on them.
Oh, I can imagine.
But the first ones I got, no one told me to order my bees in December. I didn't know that. I'm,
right.
Don't know anything about them. So I was looking online, and packages were cheaper, but nukes were sold out. And in April, I found this, because they're sold out in 1st of March, April, I found this place that said we may have a few more packages, 100 more, I believe it said. And so I contacted them, and I put my name on that list, and that was on a Saturday. And on Monday, I had bees on the way, Monday evening. And Tuesday afternoon, I had them here. They came from a place near Sacramento, California.
Wow.
They took a flight to Memphis, then flew back to Oklahoma City, and then they got trucked out of Lawton to my house.
Well, I'll be. So you never know when you're traveling.
You never know.
There may be some bees hitching a ride. Exactly. All right. So this is a partial colony. Is that right?
I took this out of a colony at my house. This is a deep frame. And,
okay, so this is the frame.
This is the actual frame.
Okay.
And I took it out, and I just slid it in here and put the cover back on it. And so they can't get out of there. And these bees have been in here since Monday. And it takes them about 12 hours to figure out they don't have a queen. And so what they do is they run around in here and they find eggs, and they start just making those queen cells.
So when you took this frame, did you know that the queen was not
I looked
here?
To see if she was not there. I didn't want her there.
You didn't want her there. But but her job, I guess, is to lay eggs, right?
That's
In
all
these
she
little
does.
cells.
That's all she does.
And if you guys can zoom in, point out to them what's going on with these
This
little.
right here is a queen cell. And they built that down there, and they have an egg in there, or will put an egg in there.
If you can see this kind of whitish, that lighter colored
It's
thing right there. Yeah, now you
It's-
can see it pretty clearly. They don't like us pointing at it, do
No.
they? That really bothers them. They're hoping for that to become
they're
their
gonna
queen.
that's one of their possibilities. And if you look up here, if we can get up, their bees are all around it.
Yeah,
there.
that one's a
There's
little bit
just a
harder to
cup
see.
up there. It's a little short cup, and that's a potential second one. Now, only young bees can make the wax that goes on there. It comes through a gland in their abdominal area, and that's the wax, and they put it on there. And
What's the lifespan?
the lifespan of a worker bee, it depends on the time of the year, but in the summertime, it's about 45 days. So
Okay.
we've got a queen, and a queen can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. 2,000.
Wow. How
and
many of those, I guess, hatch? Is that the proper?
100% of them.
Really?
I would, yeah.
100%.
But 100% of those are going to die in 45 days. So there's going to be 2,000
Oh,
a day
right,
die
right.
out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they start laying, the queen starts laying, she stops at certain times of year. She doesn't lay in the winter, but she starts as soon as the days start to get longer. So the winter solstice, the queen begins to lay, and it's just a few eggs because they have to cover those and keep them warm. They cluster over them, and they make that area 95 degrees. And then as those go on, and they got that many more workers, then
Mm-hmm.
they can cover more eggs, and then more and
Oh,
more.
I see
as
what you're
the-
saying.
As we move out
Yeah.
of the winter into the spring.
Yeah.
And beekeepers go out and look, and they said, boy, I made it through the winter. I've got, this is the 1st of February, and I have, all of my hives made it. Well, most bees that starve to death in March. So
Ah. And why did they starve to death? What?
because
they
the
said?
numbers are increasing all this time.
Oh,
and they have-
2,000 a day.
Well, it
Or-
doesn't start out at 2,000, but it does work up to that eventually. And in March, she's really laying big time, and they run out of honey.
So is it your job as a beekeeper to thin that out?
No, it's my job as a beekeeper to feed them if they run out of honey.
Okay.
But I try to keep enough honey on there to make them survive.
Uh-huh.
We were very fortunate this winter because of that cold spell we had. Now, bees don't typically freeze to death. They will get so cold they won't break out of that cluster though to go eat. So then they starve to death because they didn't go eat. And we lost 1 out of our 20 this winter. So that's
Wow,
that's 5%, and that's really, we were just blessed by that.
Right.
In the winter prior, the average loss across the nation was 43%.
Wow. Yeah, that was.
And it wasn't that bad really for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But people all think they freeze, but it's moisture. Bees make moisture out of this honey. That's just water. Water and nectar is all it is. And they sort that out, and the water goes off in a vapor because it's warm in there,
Uh-huh.
and it gets onto the top cover, and then it rains, so to speak, back on them, and wet bees die.
Ah,
So you do
okay.
things to try to keep them dry and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of, you were kind of talking about the little arch thing that they
Mhm.
make. Kind of describe that for everyone.
Okay, they will, when they put honey on here, we got honey up in the corner, and if we'd left this long enough, they'd made a honey probably all the way across here. And then inside that, they'll put pollen, and then the queen lays in all of this area.
So she lays in the cells with pollen. in
No,
them.
she lays next to them,
Oh, next to
below
them.
them. They
Okay.
want that where they can go get honey and pollen to feed those young ones. And the queen, if she read the same book again that I read, she's not supposed to cross this honey barrier.
Okay.
She won't cross it and lay in the upper part of the hive. She stays in her zone.
Uh-huh.
And now, for those that think that she might go on up there and they want to harvest the honey and make it clean, then you can put on a queen excluder.
Okay.
You put that between your boxes,
Uh-huh.
and she's so big she can't go through them.
Oh, because she's so much larger. I was
Mhm.
wondering what would prevent her from going. So are there like three sizes of bees?
Three sizes. You got your queen, of course, and she is simply a worker bee that was fed royal jelly from day one. That's all she ever gets is royal jelly. And she her abdominal area is about twice as long as the worker bee. Other than that, their genetics are the same, the whole thing. Then there's the drone, and the drone is just a big bee is all it is. He's a big bee, has no stinger, he can't sting you. And you can identify him by his big blunt tail and his big eyes. And the drone is there to mate with the queens. Now, the queen only mates once in her lifetime. When she hatches out, she waits 2 or 3 days, and then she goes on a mating flight, and she mates with several drones while she's out there, up to 30. And then the drones die. That kills them. And when she comes back, she goes to work laying eggs, and she never leaves the hive again except to swarm.
And so for 45 days, she lays eggs?
She lays eggs after that nonstop until we get to a time when there's no nectar to harvest. So in July, we'll go into a dearth, is what we call it. There's nothing to harvest. And it's caused by dry weather. Now, they don't have it everywhere, obviously. It's not like here.
Right.
So everything works off the climate, but in July, she'll basically stop laying. And in August, she won't lay. And we'll start getting some rain in September, and she'll pick up and start laying then. And in September, she lays the eggs for the brood for the fall, the winter bees. And they're different than the summer bees. They have more what's called fat bee on them, and they live longer. They'll live 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
They've got to live until next spring, because she's going to stop again when she fills the hive with bees. She'll stop in the fall.
So how long does the queen live?
The queen can live about 4 or 5. They say up to 7 years, but 4 or 5 years. Usually they get to where they don't lay enough eggs, and the colony will replace them.
And so, but she only mates the one time?
Mates one time.
And that's when she's just a few days old?
Yeah, she's 5, 7 days old after she hatches.
Wow. Yeah. That's a crazy thing to think about. Wow, I had no idea.
I'm gonna give you something crazier to think about.
Okay, hang on, y'all. Here we go.
She walks across this comb in here, and she measures that with her middle legs. And from that, she knows the size of it. She'll walk across it, puts her tail in there, and she'll leave an egg in the very bottom center. Her egg looks like a tiny miniature piece of rice, just a little white thing standing down there. And then she'll go on. And when she gets up here where there's some larger diameters, they'll make patches of
different size.
We call it brood comb. Drone comb, but it'll be larger, and she'll measure it, and then she can decide to put an egg for a drone in there.
I was about to ask you where the drones come from.
These are workers, and she'll go to that large stuff. It's usually over on the side. You can have 20% drones and be okay.
Wow. Nature is so awesome.
Now the drone,
so awesome.
The drone is only there to mate.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even feed himself. A worker bee feeds him. The worker bees do everything. They manage the hive. And when it gets too crowded, they put the queen on a diet so she can fly. And they swarm and go away. That's how they make new colonies.
And so the drones mate once and then they die.
That's right.
So, how old are they when they go off to swarm? About the same?
Well, another one of those, oh, wow things. The queen goes off to mate at what's referred to as a congregation area. And there's a place, and it could be on the backyard down here where the wind's kind of low, and she'll be flying about 300 feet high, and they mate in flight. And the drones go there and wait on a queen. They just hope that they can get in line down
So
there.
they're 300 feet up in the air, just kind of buzzing around and waiting for a queen to come by.
That's correct.
Huh.
And
And like, how many drones?
I don't
would you
know.
say? You
I
don't
don't know. And people say, well, what does it look like? Well, I don't know. It's just, I tell everybody, it seems like going to a singles bar to me. I've never been to one of those, but.
Well, I mean, how would someone even record that, without just being invasive, without getting in the way? Because people can't just hang out 300 feet in the air.
I have seen videos of it. And they do it in flight, and they come in.
I'm sure like a drone, like with a camera, probably you could maybe be far away. Yeah, enough to do something.
How do you stay on it? I don't know.
That is so cool. That is very cool. Very interesting.
So that's how they mate. Then she comes back and goes in the hive, and in a couple of days she'll start laying.
So do they all have the same number of legs? You said her middle legs.
They all have the same number.
Is it 6? Do they
Six
have
legs.
6 legs and 2 wings?
4 wings.
Oh, 4 wings.
These have 4 wings.
Okay.
If you look on people selling T-shirts, always put 2 big wings on them. They have another set of wings behind that. They come out of the same area. And in the winter, when they're trying to heat this, they will have a cluster of eggs there. And they try to heat that to get that warmer around it. Those bees, if you opened it up, and if you had a dead out, and you opened it up, there would be bees all around that with their heads down in the cell, and their tails sticking out. They go in there, and the muscles that would normally be used to fly, they can just flutter their bodies, and it generates heat, and it heats that area.
To kind of incubate those eggs? Wow.
But they keep that area about 95 degrees. But so people get the idea that they heat the entire box full of bees, but they don't. They heat that, so they get in that cluster then.
Just where those eggs are.
Yes.
Okay, now you said something earlier to us about water content in the honey and about sealing off the little honey cells. Okay,
what we have up here in the corners, we have some capped honey there. Honey, when you see it's going to be kind of white like this. And if it's out here in its eggs, it'll be brown. It'll be about the color of this cone.
Yeah, you guys probably can't really tell, but there's glistening honey inside these brown colored little, cells?
Cells.
Those little cells. And this is so cool because they made this comb, right?
They make it.
They make that honeycomb. That design is just something they make in nature.
That's the most adequate use of that's the best shape that they can make and use their area.
Okay, and so this honey in here is not capped off, but this is because
this out here, they won't cap it until the water content is about 17 or 18%. At that time, they'll cap it. If they cap it too soon, it will ferment. So they cap it when it gets to that. It'll last forever.
And so I don't think they have any little special moisture measuring tools or anything that they use. That alarm goes off and says, okay, this is the perfect concentration of water in here. To me, that is just fascinating that
when I started harvesting honey, I'd read this, so I just go by capped cells. If it's 85% capped, take it. And I decided that maybe I ought to buy me a refractometer, and that's just a thing you can put honey on a slide. It's kind of like a microscope. You look through it at the light, and it'll tell you the percentage of water in your honey. And the bees are never wrong.
Really?
Bees are never wrong.
Wow. The accuracy. It's they're very interesting creatures.
All in a bug.
All in a bug, exactly. A bug that most of us would swat and kill if they were around us.
Mhm.
So one other question about before we get, he brought a lot of his like gear and tools and stuff. I wanted him to show us too, but like these are honeybees.
Mhm.
Do you ever get a kind of a stray other kind of bee that tries to get in with your bees?
Yes, I do.
What happens when?
Well, there's usually a battle at the front door because there's a time in the life of a honeybee, they become a guard bee. And they
Okay.
hang out around the front door, and intruders come and they attempt to kill them, and the reinforcements will come eventually. And if you've ever, you go poke a stick in there and see about it, you know, they will, they'll come out and kill them usually. They'll kill yellow jackets. Yellow jackets are notorious for robbing bees if they can.
They eat the bees
Eat
or?
the honey.
Oh, they eat the honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like yellow
will
jackets, so
build-
good for you, bees.
They will build a nest on the bottom of the beehive and stuff like that, and then they can just pop up there. They're opportunists. So, you know, beekeepers kind of look for that. We put the hives on concrete blocks, and they'll go in that block and build a big
Right.
nest, and that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
Do you have any other pests that try to get into your beehives?
skunks.
Really?
Skunks eat insects,
Yes.
and so they go here and they'll get in front of the hive, and if you put them low enough, they'll pat their feet on the front of the hive on the landing board. Bees will come out in the night to check them. The skunks get them and they suck the honey out of them.
And they
They
spit the
and
carcass
spit
out?
the carcass out on the ground.
Picky
So-
little skunks.
So if you go out there in the morning and you've got a pile of bees that look like they've been sucked on all night,
They have
you probably
been.
had a skunk.
Well, I'll be. So if you don't want skunks around, you can be sure you keep these things away from the house a bit, right?
Yes. Well, and there's some things you can do to help the bees if you have that problem. I've had skunks, but not really had that problem.
Mm.
People go get some carpet tack strips, like you put
Okay,
around the wall of
right,
your house,
right.
tack it on the front there, and when he comes and pats it, it punches his feet and he goes away.
Yeah, yeah.
He learns that
That's
pretty
simple.
fast.
That's a simple enough fix
Yeah.
for that. Yeah. Okay. So, let's look at some of the gear that you
Okay.
brought. I think this is going to be proved to be interesting.
Of course, I had this queen excluder.
Uh-huh.
Some people don't use them. They say, well, it's a honey excluder. The bees won't, and that is kind of awkward to get through.
Right. Can the drones fit through that?
No, not
But they're
typically.
the workers are the ones who do
The
everything
workers-
anyway,
the workers
right?
do it all. This is just a smoker. You've seen hundreds of those around.
I have seen those around. Talk to us about the purpose of the smoker, because I always think that that's kind of an interesting fact about how the smoke affects the bees.
Well, you can use, when you get ready to open a hive, I just do about 3 or 4 little puffs at the front entrance. Give them a few seconds now.
Mm-hmm.
They smell that. Then I lift the lid and I give them some puffs up there, 3 or 4. And the bees, it confuses them. And some people say, well, it makes them think there's a fire coming and they need to engorge. And you look in there and they'll have their heads in the cell eating honey.
Huh.
And that's one of the reasons you don't want to open them too often with a smoker, is because they consume their honey unnecessarily, and it takes
okay.
them some time to get back to work.
And so then the eggs can't grow properly? Or
No,
the bees,
that
they
doesn't-
just overeat?
They just eat their honey.
Oh, okay.
So, and you don't want them to eat honey unnecessarily.
Right.
Goodness, got a bee brush, and
They like to be groomed?
they like to be groomed. No, when you need them off of that frame, you can just hold it up and just brush them down, and it's real gentle. It's that's a synthetic
Okay,
fiber,
uh-huh.
and some people use a big feather. That's what they did back in the day, and whenever the day was. And but everybody needs one of those. You don't use it often, but you need it.
Okay.
I have a queen clip.
Okay.
If I'm looking in there, if I'm catching me a swarm,
Uh-huh.
if I could spot the queen, I can clip there, put her in that clip, not harm her, just put her in there. Then I can move that to the box, and off of her pheromone, her smell, the rest of them will go in there.
So this is it's like a little cage is what it looks like to
You can
me.
get those in stainless
Kinda.
steel. Of course, this one's plastic. And
Uh-huh.
you can get,
So you just open it up
I've got
and
one
get
that
her.
looks like galvanized metal.
But that's a handy little gadget. And
but
so this is
that-
like if someone calls and says, hey, I've got bees on my bush, and you
Yep.
go, okay.
I go over there.
Is she like twice as big as a worker bee or even more?
No, she's about, if you can, a worker bee, their wing goes about as far out as their abdominal section.
Okay.
And a queen bee, hers goes another wing's length back.
So she's got,
She's
bigger
long.
wing.
She's just
Okay.
real long.
okay.
And
You can
usually you
really
don't
see them
have,
working on that little cell.
you
cut
don't
thing.
usually have distinct stripes on a queen bee.
Okay.
Yeah, that cell, they're probably trying to cap that with wax. They're working on that.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready to cap that and get her going.
Nice.
Okay, I've got hive tools. There's different kinds of hive tools, and paint doesn't matter on them. I've got yellow and reds and all sorts of things, but I won the pink one as a door prize. And usually they paint them pink and sell them as a bad paint job or something. I bought
Right.
these one time. I got some pink ones for $3.50. That's about a $10 tool.
Ah, well,
So they make nice store prizes when you have a
little beekeepers
people,
gathering.
yeah, have a gathering and you draw numbers and give them away. This is the more traditional, and it looks like a nail bar, and you
Yeah.
can pull nails with that thing.
Yeah.
But they're not tempered, so they will bend.
Oh, okay.
But you can scrape and lift and all
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And when you open a hive, bees glue their frames together with propolis. Propolis they make from tree sap. And I tell everybody that's the strongest glue known to man. You know, it's,
Wow.
you just can't get it loose. So you take your end of your hive tool and you put it in there and you separate the frames. And then this one, I like it because I can put it under the end of the frame and rest that spur back on the next frame and pick it up out of the box.
Ah.
And when I get it picked up a little bit, I clamp it with this. I just pick it up. That's just a
Right.
frame tool, and I can pick it up and pull it. I can turn it over. I can move it all around.
Uh-huh.
If you use a foundation in it, I use plastic foundation, so it's locked in the frame, and I can turn it over every
Mhm.
direction. If I've got wax in it or no foundation, you have to be a little more cautious.
Right. Yeah. It'll
So-
give, I'm sure.
This is a good tool to
So
have.
it does look like it requires a bit of an investment
Yes,
to
it
be
does.
able to
But
work with these bees.
still cheaper than golf.
And okay, so you've got a few other things over here. This,
Okay, you're going to want some good gloves.
yeah.
Here, you can try that glove on. That's the
Okay.
right hand. Get an idea of,
And so does this keep them from stinging me?
they won't sting through that, normally through that
This
rubber.
rubber?
Once in a while, you'll take a little sting, but it's shallow and it doesn't do much to you. You learn to be stung
Sting
if you're
is
a
a
beekeeper.
sting.
If you're a
I'm
beekeeper.
sure that's true.
It's going to happen. And then I've got, those have I don't know, some kind of a rubber glove on
Yeah,
them.
yeah, it's like a household cleaning glove is what it
Yes.
feels like.
And some people wear household cleaning gloves.
Uh-huh.
You can use that goat skin.
Okay, just like your leather work
It's just a-
gloves
It's just a
right?
soft leather work glove, and they
Uh-huh.
will sting through the back of that.
through this.
Yes, they will.
Well, those little,
They're not
Meanies?
bad about that. I'll certainly wear them.
yeah.
There are people that wear nothing, but I'm not one of them.
Hey, if they make a protective thing,
I-
then we're glad we're gonna wear them.
And then I've got some cowhide gloves.
Can they
No.
sting through that?
No, they will not sting through cowhide gloves. Now they get through that vented area.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly they find those places.
And get you.
My brother-in-law was tending to some bees earlier this week that I'd given him. And he went out there with a hole in his jeans. not a good thing. They filled it up with bees.
Wow. So do you always gear up when you go?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I caught one swarm without any gear on, and only got stung once. But once you get stung, they go back to that same place every time to sting. They leave a smell there, and they go back to that place to sting. So if you get stung on the hand, and I did recently, I've got some gloves that are vented in the back.
Yeah.
And they're nice until you get stung, but then the bees kept going right there. That's just a plastic helmet with a veil on it. You pull that down around your collar and tie this around your body. That you see a lot of those. That's traditional. They eventually find their way up through the back at your collar and start stinging you on the back of the head. But I worked, if you recall, in 2015, there was a semi overturned up by Pauls Valley on Interstate 35. And I got a call to come up there and help them with that. So I went up there, and I was wearing this and a pair of white coveralls and some goat skin gloves. And I did fine for a couple of hours or 3 hours. And I started getting stings on the back of the head, and I said, time to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need out of here.
Yeah, I bet.
So truck had about 400 hives. It had blown out 2 tires in a road construction area, and they were all scattered down the side of the road. So they had half of the highway closed off.
Oh my goodness.
And
were the bees just out of their mind?
Out of their mind.
Yeah.
Covered up the highway patrolman's car.
Oh goodness. Wow. What an
This is a bee jacket. It's a ventilated jacket. And you'd think it was cool, but it's still.
It seems heavy.
It is heavy.
Does it protect you from getting stung though?
I've never been stung through it. My son has. He helps me, and his arms are enough bigger. His gloves get tight, and they will get him right there.
Yeah, yeah. And then this goes over your head.
This goes over your head.
It looks like it might protect the back of your head a little bit.
Oh, they can't get in it.
Yeah,
they can't get in it.
That looks like maybe something I'd rather.
I like this.
If I couldn't wear like an asbestos suit of some sort, I'd probably.
I have one with a hat on it.
Ah.
And I don't like a hat. Now, there's some people think that's the greatest thing, but in Oklahoma, it blows it off of my head.
Oh,
and then I've got a screen up against my face.
Yeah.
Bees are quick.
Yeah. And then this is a
coverall. This is a full suit. It's like
and it's that same heavy.
Yeah, it's heavier in fact than the other one.
It is.
It's got.
So this is your ultimate protection.
This is it. This is it. But it's sure hot, so I wear the jacket most of the time, unless I'm going into a situation that could turn ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes they do. This zips down around your ankles, and if you've got boots, you're good. And I don't wear boots much anymore, and sometimes they get me on the ankles.
So, Clifford, it's my understanding that bees are a necessary part of, well, I'm at a loss for the word right now. Just like the cycle of reproducing plants, whatever that. Pollination. Thank you. My goodness.
If bees make it possible for us to do things we couldn't do otherwise. They pollinate, they estimate about 80% of the almonds in California.
That's significant.
And
that's a huge.
We would eat a lot fewer almonds if we didn't have honeybees. And we would probably have to stop using sprays, chemicals that kill our butterflies and that kind of thing, because they're pollinators too.
Right.
When I was a little kid, before I met you.
Yeah, just before.
I could go out in the summertime and just catch monarch butterflies all day. Then you hardly see them now.
Yeah, that's true.
And another interesting thing is honeybees are not native to this continent.
Really? I
Um,
didn't know that.
they didn't get here until 1622, according to the internet. That's close as I can get. So,
Right, right.
and they say that from 1622 to 1638, there was bees in Massachusetts. They put these first ones in Virginia. I'm sorry, put them in Virginia, and then they say they were in Massachusetts. Now, all of that is habitat means everything, and so that's good habitat up that area. But I don't think they traveled that far in 15 years, because it took them 200, I think, about 1850 before they could get to the San Francisco area.
Yeah.
And so they probably had more of them introduced after they saw the need for them, because the honeybee is the only social creature that makes food for man, and they do everything for the good of the colony.
Yeah.
They some people believe that when they fly out, those guard bees fly out there and sting you, they know it's going to kill them, but I'm not sure they really know that. So
that they're actually sacrificing themselves. But
but don't give them that personality.
Right. Yeah, that seems like a lot.
But they did introduce them here, and I think that we probably will never see them on the endangered species list because of that.
Yeah.
And all of the numbers that they use out here now to say, well, our numbers are down. Well, they compare them to where we were at the end of World War II. And World War II, we had everybody kept bees through the war because sugar was rationed.
Right.
And so they used honey for sweeteners. And so after the war, there's no need to keep them anymore. So people kind of let them go. And yes, our numbers plunged, and then they started back up. And then we introduced other things that we thought was good at the time, I guess. But we have the varroa mite, and we never introduced him on purpose, let me tell you. The varroa mite is from Central Asia. Okay. And we introduced it on a bee somehow.
And do the mites kill bees?
The mites usually, they weaken the bees.
Okay.
But the mites carry viruses.
Oh.
And the viruses kill the bees.
Okay, yeah.
And when they go open a beehive with colony collapse disorder, then they find viruses in their bees quite often.
I see. Yeah.
But so that's when I earlier made reference to we have to treat for mites.
Mm-hmm.
So I treated 3 times last year, and most I've ever treated, but I have the biggest, most robust hives, and I only lost 5%.
So did you find mites? Can you tell if you have them?
You can tell if you have them. You get you a half a cup of bees off of the brood nest area. Mm-hmm. Careful to not get the queen bee. And you get your half a cup, and it's amazing because they'll stay in that cup. But the ones off the brood nest don't fly. They haven't learned to fly yet.
Oh, okay.
Put them in a jar, and then I put in enough alcohol to cover them. Shake them around, roll them around gently. Do that for about a half a minute. And then I've got 2 jars that are glued together. I can turn them over. I have a screen in there, and I turn them over, and the mites fall through and the bees don't. But the mites wash off, and that's called an alcohol wash, and it's considered the best, the most accurate. Some people use the same thing with the sugar instead of alcohol. It doesn't kill the bees. Mm-hmm. Then you release them back, and some people put powdered sugar. Powdered sugar. Some people put powdered sugar in their hives to make them groom each other and pull the mites off. And then the mites will fall out through screen bottom boards if you use those.
Yeah. And
then they put down a sticky board under it that counts the mites when they come through. But for an accurate count, you put half a cup and use the alcohol wash. The half a cup of bees represents about 300. And then you want 4%. So if you've got more than 12 mites off of your half a cup, you've got too many mites and you need to treat.
Interesting. Wow. So it sounds like even though it's a hobby, it takes quite a bit of time, I'm guessing.
It takes quite a bit of time,
Mhm.
about as much as being good at golf. And
He's just reminding us that it's still not as expensive or time consuming. That's what you're getting at
yes,
too.
yes.
Well, I just think that this is very interesting. I've really learned a lot about bees and about this whole process. I can see why it's interesting and why you would enjoy it. I don't know that overcoming that anxiety about being stung, I don't know if it would make me want to enjoy it that much, but I would
You
do.
suit up in that suit and you have to get comfortable with the idea that they can bounce off of the screen and never get to you.
They sense if you're anxious, they sense it, and
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they do. And they don't see white well, so you never see
Ah.
beekeeper suits and much besides white.
Mhm.
There's a few others out there, but don't ever wear black. All of their natural predators are black, bears and that kind of thing.
That's good to know.
You can go out there and he could go out there in that blue jacket
Mhm.
and he's just a target. And good to know. So they only defend their hive. They're just like us, you know.
Yeah.
They defend their hive and their children and their food supply, and that's what we would do.
Mhm.
And they if they're out harvesting or foraging off of flowers out here in the park, they won't mess with you unless you step on them or something.
Yeah.
Then do what you do, get them off of me.
Yeah.
And so it's all.
Are there several beekeepers around this area?
There are a lot of beekeepers in this area. We've had up to, I'm president of the Southwest Beekeepers Association. So we've had as many as 35 over there pre-COVID. We would have for a meeting. We meet the second Thursday of the month, every month at 7 p.m. at the Stevens County Fairgrounds. For those of you out of town, that's 2002 South 13th.
And have you picked up your meetings yet? Or have you started meeting together?
We started
again?
meeting last June.
Okay.
As soon as they opened the fairgrounds, we went back to meeting.
Okay.
And
so, if you're interested in maybe someone who hasn't become a beekeeper yet, but they would like to know about it, can they come and
absolutely
learn?
Everybody's welcome. And if I'd have gone a year sooner, I would have known to order my bees in December instead of waiting until April. And instead, I got those real expensive things in April.
Yeah. Well,
because
there
that's
you
all
go.
there was.
Yeah. Clifford, thank you so much for being on Trail Talk. I hope everyone enjoyed this great informational episode today. Really learned a lot of cool things about bees. And, we are excited because next week, it's next Wednesday, right? Next Wednesday, we're celebrating our 100th episode of Trail Talk. I guess that means you're 99.
99.
And it's on May the 5th. We'll be right here at 3 p.m. We have a whole list of guests, the Cowboy Opry Band, Jay Snyder, Jilly and Clancy Jones, Lou Baggett. All of them will be here. We'll have performances and art and talking, and it's going to be a really great show. And so we're excited and hope you'll be able to join us for that. And if you have any additional questions about today's Trail Talk, if you want to just put those in the comments, I bet Clifford would be glad to help us answer your questions. And thanks a lot for joining us today. Whenever it's time to go, Clifford, we say happy trails together. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Happy trails. Bye-bye.